Guess who? A strange theme appears to be running within the world of entertainment. More than just your average oddness, of which there is plenty. But this one ties into a bigger picture, which steps outside of entertainment and into what we know as the real world, sort of. And it's not a new idea, it's just one that keeps popping up on the internet, and as far as I know, is still a conspiracy theory. And a weird one at that. It does centre around Hollywood, so that shouldn't be of any surprise. My article, How Weird, also touches on one of the other conspiracies going around. This one is for the idea that certain people aren't who they appear to be, and that certain actors are playing the role of politicians. This is a twofold thing, as I saw talk yesterday about actual auditions being held, and that's how AOC got her position. So acting the part of a politician, but still with her face and looking recognisable as who she is. The second one is clearly where it gets weird, and opens up the conspiracy theory somewhat. That Jim Carrey is playing the role of Joe Biden, and sometimes other people have been playing Biden. Not helped by there being an IMDb page for a man whose only role was playing Biden at the inauguration. So, are we in a time where things are not what they seem, and no one is really who they say they are? Sounds like Scooby-Doo episodes may have been exposing more of reality than we realised. Or was just there to prime us for the idea later on, and to be useful now perhaps, thinking it's not such an outrageous concept after all. To deceive the viewer of the true identity of the person underneath, and it to be for entertainment, usually within acting and such. But I thought of another reason you might want to fake public personalities created. Because if that said personality or politician were to actually be held accountable for something, then do they really exist to be able to be held to account? If everyone has been replaced, and no one is who you think they are, doesn't that help to create an even more confusing landscape of who is actually doing something wrong? Like at the end of Usual Suspects, when it's revealed who it was, he was then gone. And like the famous quote used at the end of that, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making people think he didn't exist. It shows how easy it is to deceive if you place all the right signs and symbols where they are meant to go, laying out what looks like a very clear picture and roadmap of details, because it is meant to look that way. There is also constant talk online here and there of people who are deliberately playing a part in a mask, playing the role of the villains as they have all been executed, and it's to try and save the day and deceive people for good. Not so sure that holds up for me. Sounds like more trickery and traps to fall into. Don't get me wrong, I would very much like to think there is a subplot going on, where the rebellion has infiltrated the upper ranks and are slowly taking them out, with a big reveal just round the corner, and all the evils exposed and villains taking their place for judgment. It's necessary, but whether it will happen or not remains to be seen, as there is much working to keep it as it is, and on its projected path. Alongside the swapping of faces, masks, and lots of people not who they are, there seems to be another long-running idea that certain people haven't died. Elvis, Michael Jackson, and others. So while there are people who you think are alive, no, they are dead, being played by other living people. And people you are told and think are dead, apparently, they are alive and well and living their best life somewhere, being their true self, but secretly. And at first, I always dismissed that idea, hearing that people didn't think Elvis had died for decades and sightings being reported in my childhood a decade after it. Many thought it ridiculous too. And I wondered if it was a psychological issue, where you can't or won't believe that something you felt you were attached to is no longer there. So it's easier to believe they didn't die, rather than face the grief and reality of that. Now, if I look at it with conspiracy eyes, I would suggest that Elvis indeed didn't die, because he possibly never even existed in the first place. Just like we have AI versions of people now, to look perfect and appear a certain way. Maybe they had to use real people back in the day, to completely fabricate an entire personality and part for someone to play, like actors do in movies, but a real life setting being the set, and real people in society being the audience. And when it's your time to expire from public life, as they say in Death Becomes Her, you then have to disappear, and what better way than for people to think you are dead? But the legend lives on, as do the stories and manner in which they are passed. But like I said, That's from a conspiracy angle, and what purpose it might serve to do that. And as I mentioned in The Mummers and the Military Puppers, much of the music industry has been manipulated and sewn up for who will be their talent. So I believe that the film and television industry is no different. They just might be using different types of actors and have different roles to be played, being caught doing things they make a big deal of, but never actually face justice for. Laying the foundations and exposing people to what they would like you to be aware of and thinking about. And all the while they just carry on with the deception, using screens, actors and people's own emotions against them, hypnotising them with glitz and glamour, awards, fashion and faces. But it does not feel like a well-crafted production anymore. It's become more of a grotesque pantomime, where the masked faces are melting and things are looking rather buckled and distorted. One can only guess where it goes from here.